This is Studio 809 Podcasts, informing, connecting, and empowering the residents of the Pikes Peak region.
Binlow Season 2 is sponsored by Blackpackers, economic equity in outdoor education and recreation.
This is Badly Needed and Long Overdue, a controversial podcast about Colorado Springs. It's controversial because it makes sense. I'm your host, Nick Raven. How you doing? I'm standing in front of suburban sprawl, facing all the way out to Powers and beyond, just hills and hills, seasoned with all of the best tract housing and detached single-family homes and no mixed use anything. Everyone has to drive everywhere. In fact, I'm right next to South Carefree, so naturally there's a whole bunch of sound of people coming up and down. So there's two lanes that come up this hill to where I'm at, and they merge. And the amount of, not quite violence, but the amount of activity that people engage with to zoom past people before those roads merge is absolutely insane. It is a high tension area from time to time. I used to walk this every day, keeping with the theme of being a pedestrian in these intros and outros and bookends. This is actually the hill that 15 years ago, there was that famous or infamous video shot of cars basically getting stuck on the hill and then rolling back and slamming into each other on the side. That was here. That was just right over here. And so it was weird 6 months or even just 4 or 5 months after I left my job over here in First and Main at the Best Buy, that video was shot on this path that I walked up and down all the time on this big, pretty severe hill. So anyway, we're here to talk about our guest. This is episode 27, and we've got Tom Shepard, the executive director of Youth Documentary Academy. If you don't know what it is, obviously Tom's going to explain it, but it's a 12-week intensive program where they take at-risk and underprivileged children, like middle schooler, like high schooler, that kind of age, and allow them to tell their stories through film, even if they've never considered being filmmakers before. They go and audition, but they apply. And if they're one of the dozen that are picked, they get to go make their film over summer. And then they have a premiere in November, which is actually coming up here, November 9th. So hopefully you're listening / watching this before that happens. But you can go get tickets from them. Tom's got the URL. I have conveniently forgotten what it is, but he talks about it. Go see it. The entire premiere is in 2 blocks, so you get to see 6 and 6 or 6 and 5 or half and half basically, and then they bring out the filmmakers themselves and they talk about their films and the stuff like that. And one of them, Connor Strange, from last year's schedule of filmmakers, actually just won a scholarship after winning at the All-American High School competition where YDA alums usually place well. A number of them have won. In fact, I know about YDA because when I was writing for the Indie, that's when I got to meet Olivia Van Theren, I believe that's her name, and Tom at the Indie office in one of the echoiest rooms in that entire church, and have a conversation with her about the program, about how she made her program skin knees, scrape knees, and it was great. And so I've been keeping track and I've been in touch with Tom ever since. So we have a really good interview, really insightful, especially about his time here in Colorado Springs, leaving and coming back and wanting to create something really good and creative here. So let's get to it. But first, let's pay the bills, and then we'll be right back on the other end. How's that sound?
The Nth Review. Do you like video games? What about multi-hour deep dives into how video games work? Of course you do. It's time you come check out what 22,000 other subscribers have already discovered. A whole bunch of delicious content about mechanics, immersive sims, action games, open world stuff, and why we play and enjoy games in video essays you can cook dinner to. Check it out at youtube.com/nth-review. And be sure to check out my newest review for Deus Ex Mankind Divided, a revisit of the classic immersive sim, coming out soon. If you'd like to place an ad on Binlo, send an email to badlyneededpodcast@gmail.com and get your business, campaign, or message prominently featured on this beautiful, glittering podcast. Now, onto the conversation. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nick.
I've never liked having my wallet in my back pocket, I'll be honest with you. We were talking off camera about health benefits, but I've always had it in my front right pocket.
Okay.
And so it's accessible. I always had this fear that if I had it in my back pocket, it would slip out, because you see so many people and it's like sticking up just a little bit, and it's like that someone's going to grab it. You know, you just pickpocketing and stuff like that, the threat of it. But if it's right here, who's going to grab for that? No one's going to grab for that.
It's a very good point, Nick. I see my students now putting their cell phones in their back pocket, and it seems like there's a hip factor. And I'm like, there's a hip factor, but it's the actual anatomy hip, not
like the metaphorical
hip. I'm like,
hip.
No, I'm not putting that in my back pocket. So, yeah.
I think back to, was it iPhone 6 or something, Bendgate, where you had people just bending the phones with minimal effort. So I imagine that if I'm sitting on my phone, even though I didn't switch to iPhone until just a few years ago, any phone, like, you're just going to get that bend out of it. And then all of a sudden you've got a lithium fire. And then you've got hot pants. And that is bad for everyone.
That's not good.
No, it's not good. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. I'm so well.
Yeah.
Now that I'm talking to you. So.
Am I the first human you've talked to
yes.
today?
Literally, my voice will change by half an octave by the end of our conversation, because we're talking in the morning. So, yeah. We were just talking about this. I'm not an early bird. I'm a night owl for sure. So,
there's the Prodigy video. I won't repeat the name, but it's been banned on most channels, and it is a night tour. And that always reminds me of late nights going to Walmart, picking up snack trays and cheesecakes, which I don't want to say I'd eat them whole, but I would slice them and then, but the night, and even being here downtown for First Fridays when the lights come up, and it's a whole different vibe. And it feels like the town really hasn't had that. It's usually been dark and nothing and boring. And I know you've been here a while too. You were born here, raised here.
I was born and raised here in the, mostly 70s and 80s, and, had a decent childhood, but also had a pretty conflicted relationship with this town at that time. And so when I finished high school, it was a little bit like, get out of Dodge and don't come back. And although I've always had very close relationships with my family, so over the years and decades, I would come back for holidays and, to connect with family, both my immediate family, but extended family. And so it wasn't until maybe 12 years ago, my dad actually got quite sick. He had a neurodegenerative disease, and I think maybe my mom and sister needed more than just a long weekend or a holiday. And so I moved back here for, a couple different periods of months, and just kind of realized I kind of need to get over whatever my childhood issues are. I need to kind of make amends with this town. And so that started a whole new, very unexpected journey. I had been living and working in San Francisco in the Bay Area for so many years.
You're the kid who left his hometown. It's like, I want to be a filmmaker. I have to go to the coast or somewhere who's not here.
Yeah, I mean, definitely at that time when I graduated from high school, if you were interested in being a professional filmmaker, you just had a couple of options. It was New York or California. So I moved to the Bay Area to go to college and kind of set up shop there and had a production company. And the Bay Area is very resource rich. Of course, we know Silicon Valley and the tech world there, but there, in terms of independent filmmaking, people don't realize for a long time there were more independent filmmakers per capita in San Francisco than any other city. And I think because filmmaking there isn't tied to a particular industry like Hollywood in LA or kind of the TV media industry in New York, there it felt like a great big sandbox in which to play, and also a lot of people who wanted to fund documentary, which is what I was interested in learning, and a lot of other documentary filmmakers who were interested in mentoring. So quite a great community. And I just thought, well, you know, I'm always going to come back and visit Colorado. It's a beautiful place. And like I said, my family has been here since the 1930s. So the roots grew pretty deep.
So your second, third generation?
Yeah. My great-grandparents settled over on the west side near Manitou in the 30s. My dad was born at Glockner Hospital, which is now Penrose.
Okay.
And my grandfather was like a volunteer fireman at the Manitou Springs Fire Department. And yeah, I mean, it just, my mom's family came from Kansas and Oklahoma in the 50s, so a little bit later. But yeah, all my family is here, and I've always considered it home in a certain way. But
yeah, we all have the vibes of being transplants. Like you see everyone complaining now about those people from Texas and California and stuff like that. But you go back far enough, and we all immigrated here. And we went to Brakeman's Burgers the other day in what used to be Giuseppe's. Because growing up, and I tell this to everyone that has an ear, but Giuseppe's was my birthday joint every year. It's like, we got to go to, because that's, Tom, they had the best Reuben. That's where they introduced me to the Reuben.
I wish I knew that.
Yeah, and they had the salad bar, right? But it was the full, the depot. And so trains would roll by. So when we'd come out here on vacation in the early 90s, so I'm like the decade after you, we'd go, it's like we have to go to Giuseppe's when we're here. And now it's Brakeman's Burgers through at least like half the joint there. And it's like nostalgia. Yeah. It's and I didn't even really, it didn't click for me that anytime we came downtown was pretty much just go to Giuseppe's. And we would come down I-25, get off that exit there at Bijou, make that immediate right turn, which is where the Pikes Peak State College is with the black box.
That's where we do our work now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool too. And then there's the train depot's right there.
Same thing, Nick. I mean, that's every big family holiday, and I have a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins. We would meet at Giuseppe's. Although I didn't know about the Reuben. We would always got pizza.
The best.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, so I would ask Schnipper. You know Matt Schnipper, right?
I know him through his work. Yeah.
Yeah. He. I would ask him like, who's got the best Reuben? And eventually I had to go out and so you start with Arby's, and their Reuben's pretty good. But I want to say for my dollar, it's East Coast's.
But have you tried Richard Scorman's Reuben sandwich over at Poor Richard's? Because he's got a special way of doing it. You can order the standard traditional, or you can do it the Richard's way, which is actually delineated on the menu, and I am a fan.
Okay, I'm gonna try. I've done Wooglin's. They've got a good Reuben.
They do.
I'll say a couple other spots, but obviously they're not flooding to mind. But memories.
Talk about memories and an institution. Poor Richard's and Richard Scorman. My friends and I went to Palmer High School. We used to walk over to Poor Richard's during our lunch hour because there was an off-campus, we could leave. And there were all those fast food places just 3 blocks away. So you had, Wendy's, McDonald's, Taco Bell.
The chains.
Yeah. And so you could basically eat fast food through your entire high school. But somewhere along the line, one of our friends was like, let's go to Poor Richard's. And he was so nice because he would let us basically sit in the restaurant, even if we had a brown bag lunch and half of us were making our lunches still at home.
Yeah.
He didn't care. He was like, yeah, we're just sort of open to all. That term inclusion, which apparently now has become like a very bad word.
No empathy
part of
allowed.
It. Yeah. So
what did you think?
And also, as a sort of closeted gay kid growing up here at a time when, arguably the religious right and many, many organizations were beginning to headquarter here in the 80s. Poor Richards was a beacon. Poor Richards was a space in which all people could come and sort of feel accepted. And so given that we've kind of cycled around to, a time when some of those words like diversity and equity and inclusion have become, sort of demonized, poor Richards is still there.
And he was a co-founder of the Indie too, with John Weiss and Catherine Eastburn and that. Like he provided office space right above there, as I understand it. So they had somewhere to be early on.
I didn't know that.
There's old photos of Richard with black longer hair and with John, and because we had to dig a lot of that up for when we were celebrating the Indie yesterday. Dobson died.
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
James Dobson, the executive director, the CEO of Focus on the Family. I guess what I was in terms of what I was just saying, which is that in the 80s, a number of these Christian organizations relocated and headquartered in Colorado Springs, and my understanding of that history is that the town provided a lot of tax breaks. And
it was an E-Chamber and EDC. Really big push, as I understand it.
Yeah. So Focus on the Family, which came maybe in the early, I want to say 91, 92. It had been a lot of these groups came from Southern California, from Orange County.
Doug Bruce too. Doug,
So they became maybe the most widely known kind of public face of that movement. And, again, as someone that was growing up trying to kind of figure out who they are, they were responsible for, I hate to say it, but probably a kind of messaging that was very, very damaging to a lot of people here in the state. And my dad, who, as I told you, grew up here, was a history teacher and taught in Widefield for 30 years and, worked as a local historian, would often remind me in the decades to follow that that's not what Colorado Springs was. Yes, Colorado Springs has been more conservative. Yes, there's a military history here, but he made the point that it was much more libertarian and a kind of live, let live, and that all changed in the late 80s and early 90s when those groups, because those groups weren't just about espousing a particular brand of Christianity. There's some religious organizations like, for instance, Jehovah's Witnesses. I happen to know a lot about Jehovah's Witnesses because I made a documentary about them. What was it called? It was called Knocking.
Okay.
And I made it with my co-director Joel Engardio, who is now a city supervisor in San Francisco. So he's left filmmaking, but he grew up as a witness in Michigan and had a great relationship with Watchtower, which is their national organization, which at the time was in Brooklyn. But they're an organization that have a lot of similar beliefs to evangelicals, Mormons, others, but they are very explicit that they're not going to kind of run behind your back and change the Constitution or sort of legislate their beliefs in a way that is going to exclude you. They believe in America that there's, you can be a Jehovah's Witness, but there's also room on the block for a lot of other faiths.
Right.
That's not quite the view of James Dobson. He was on a mission to eradicate,
differing ideologies.
Yeah.
And Christian nationalism, which we like to talk about a lot now.
Yeah. And he seemingly had no problem having that be politicized. I mean, he was in touch with the Reagan administration and the Bush administration pretty explicitly. So it was, I think,
the moral majority.
Yeah, I think it was a huge sea change in this community, and that's right at the moment in which I left and fled.
It seems like there would be an impasse there. It seems that as our community has diversified, that's also caused the arts to blossom, because through art you explore so many things that you previously were not comfortable with, and that's where the best stuff comes from. And I know that through Youth Documentary Academy, you are bringing at-risk, unprivileged children into this who I've talked to we've talked for years with student filmmakers who, like, I've never considered being a filmmaker. I just have a story to tell. And you are using that program, which did not exist. And we were talking earlier about, that kind of institutional, like, foundational presence, that you would have culturally and logistically in San Francisco that you didn't have here. But you're like, we're going to set this up here. Yeah. And so you are using the program to then allow these kids through filmmaking to be able to tell their stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, again, when I was in high school, I just sort of kept my head down, was a little bit overachieving kid, but I didn't feel like there was room to talk about anything. And when I talked to my friends whom I graduated with from Palmer now as adults, we all sort of realized that we had a lot of stuff going on, and there wasn't, and this isn't unique to Colorado Springs, this was unique to our generation, that a lot of topics were off limits and taboo and stuff. But I think
Don't go there.
As part of my own, reconnecting, I said earlier, sort of maybe making amends with this city, because I didn't feel like I was welcome. When right at the time that I was settling in San Francisco, folks here in the Springs, Colorado Springs, were drafting legislation that ultimately became a law in the state called Amendment 2 that was passed by the majority in the state, that basically would discriminate against queer folks, LGBTQ plus people. And so as a young person who was just kind of trying to find my voice, that felt pretty scary.
Did you feel that it would follow you where you went, or was it like this, it's local to here and maybe it'll pass?
I personalized it, as many young people do. I had a big chip on my shoulder that this is like, a very small-minded community in which it's not only did Colorado become the hate state. I used to play tennis with a guy who owned a Chrysler dealership, used cars here. His name was Will Perkins. I used to play tennis with his family, and he was part of a group called Colorado for Family Values that actually wrote that legislation. So it actually felt very personal to me for a number of reasons. And so all of this to say, I had some work to do to recognize when I left, a lot of amazing people in Colorado Springs stayed. And you've mentioned some of those people. My friend Catherine Eastburn, who was one of the co-founders of The Independent, folks who started an organization called Citizens Project, which I can't tell you how catalytic that was. So
we had Steffi Hill. She's a good friend of mine, but she's the interim executive director
I
over
like
there.
her a lot.
So she's amazing. I know, right?
My dad, my parents both, but my dad in particular, over the years in the 90s and the aughts and stuff, was always trying to make the case for me to come back to Colorado.
And come back, Tom.
Come back to the Spring. I'd be like, Dad, I'm a documentary filmmaker, and
I don't have time for this Colorado Springs stuff.
And he would find these positions. Most of them, I have to say, were in Denver, but anything related to video, and he would like send them to me, and I'd be like, Dad, you know that I'm gay, you know the history, you know what's going on in the Springs. And so rather than, agree, he became a volunteer at Inside Out Youth Services for 12 years.
Wow.
This kind of straight grandpa working with queer youth, and would send me these emails in San Francisco. And I'm like, I'm learning more about queer experience from, my family in Colorado Springs than I am in the gayest city in the world, arguably. So he was always... always a defender of the Pikes Peak region, and so all to say, circling back to your question about Youth Documentary Academy, it's a couple years after my dad passed away that educators that I had met, I had taught a class in documentary here, started kind of chewing on this idea of what would it look like to create a very high-end film arts academy in Colorado Springs, like the ones that I had seen in California, and also that exist, in New York. But they tend to be reserved for mostly like really bougie families who can send their, spend thousands of dollars for a specialized summer camp and film and that sort of thing. So we, right away, I think we're kind of locating this idea of, representation and who gets to tell their story and who gets, access to a kind of industry standard gear in terms of film equipment, in terms of professional filmmakers as mentors. And so that was the genesis. What I didn't quite realize is how much healing would come in doing this work. My own sort of young version of myself, who was still had some real issues around being here, and just seeing young people like not be afraid to use their voice. Once given the skills, that they were seeing themselves as an access point to story, and it wasn't taboo. It was, they were able to kind of speak their truth. And so seeing young people destigmatize conversations around mental health or race, or growing up maybe with autism, or growing up blind, or
disabilities,
the range of the diverse community that we are here, and having it come from the lens of young people has been really, really empowering for me, and it's made me want to stay. I just got a place in May, and I've fully moved here now after many years. So I now am going to be voting in Colorado Springs.
Yes, and you have to vote, Tom.
Yes,
we've got at-large races next year and all that. So you have to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to you off camera, off mic, and learn more, about all the issues here. So there's plenty to talk about. I assure. And part of that is this podcast as we get into that. So when you're shaping YDA, you're facilitating in that. Are you also looking at like using that as a mirror for what you wish you had to be able to discuss these things and like be able to go to these students and say, this will help you in these ways that you may not understand yet, but the camera part is just the physical part of it. The real part, it really seems, is you have a story, because you're not just taking anyone. You're not just taking anyone who writes the biggest checks or anything like, please give us the grant money or whatever. You are choosing kids who have particular messages, particular stories, and saying, hey, you have an opportunity to be able to tell that story, and we're giving you the validation. We're giving you the permission to be able to tell that stuff. And that seems like that would also maybe cause some conflict with some families and stuff like that as you're going through it. Well, that's really insightful. And actually, it's been one of the most interesting things. So documentary, as you know, is really predicated on access. It's all about kind of authentic access to an experience that then you can get on camera, transpose that into a film. So most of the films that are made in our program are what we would call kind of first-person point of view films, because the student who is coming in to learn how to make a film is their access point to story at that age is them and their family. So we see the young burgeoning directors have a vision for a film, but then you see them on the other side of the camera where they're actually having these conversations, often very difficult conversations, with their own parents or their grandparents or their siblings. So it's been really interesting to see this program become almost a conduit for intergenerational conversations. And what we hear when audiences come and see the films is, yes, this is a really powerful way to see what matters to young people, what they're passionate about, what they're concerned about, what the issues are that they've been wrestling with. But equally so, it models how I, a parent, might be able to have a conversation with my kid about this touchy subject. So we just... I don't know. It's a pretty amazing privilege to go into many homes. And so maybe we'll be making a film about what it's like growing up in a first-generation immigrant family. And we, the faculty, the filmmakers in our program, would not have this sort of authentic access. But our student who knows this, who's living this, who already has a relationship with their mom or their sibling, can sit down and have those conversations, and also can do it very quickly. Like access comes very quickly. So that's one thing that we've noticed. Another thing that was really unexpected was how students, young people, are able to kind of process, and in some cases decrease the kind of trauma maybe that they've had in their lives. So some of these films are difficult. Maybe one of our first films in 2014 was this kid, Bailey Francisco, who grew up over in Fountain, Fort Carson. And his dad, who had been a super dad, he'd been so close to his dad growing up, after 4 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, comes back with a traumatic brain injury and serious PTSD and addiction to pain medications, and flips. Like, his personality becomes violent and unstable. And so for a 13-year-old to see this and watch this transform, and then to kind of document it in a film in real time as it's going on, was so powerful. And that film, you know, after it was made, we as staff are like, that's what YDA is about.
Yeah.
Bailey talks about making that film was very therapeutic for him because it was there was so much taboo talking about it. He said once he started showing his film with Wounded Warriors and some of these other community groups, he realized that every 4th house on the block where he grew up, people were dealing with that same issue and were suffering in silence. So we quickly then brought in people far more competent than we were as filmmakers, who are kind of social workers, trauma-informed teachers, mental health folks. And this was all, you know, kind of culminating around COVID, when I think the country was starting to like put a spotlight on the teen mental health of youth and what a crisis that was becoming. I think there was an entry point for us to say, look, here is a practice that allows young people to abstract the trauma in their lives, like literally move trauma from that kind of flight or fight kind of limbic system in their brain into the prefrontal cortex, where they're, you know, the storytelling part of our brain. Right. That in doing that, there's a whole modality that happens that allows people to come out the other side more healed. So that was like, wow, okay. So, and not every film is going to have that, but we were noticing that many of the films, not unlike maybe you've heard of the modality EMDR, which is a process of
the light and everything, the intense like trauma triggering.
It's a kind of re-exposure, but in a different part of the brain that allows the brain to kind of, as I said, sort of neutralize some of that trauma. We think that that's maybe what happens with some of our youth who are making these films. And then it becomes a powerful way to open the door to courageous conversations and for mental health experts to help us bring those films into schools and, you know, facilitate a kind of a peer-to-peer conversation where the kids are able to talk about this stuff, and then it just becomes infectious and spreads. So all the things that we've done, like, have, you know, we've sort of like kind of happened into them, and then but I think understanding like, wow, there isn't really another model like this in the country that I've seen of a film arts organization that sort of encompasses
all of this
kind of stuff.
Affiliate ones popping up anywhere, or maybe Lincoln, Nebraska needs one. I mean, we've talked previously. It's like, every metro area should have that, where people are. I mean, rural population should too. It's a little harder to facilitate when you've got a 20-mile drive. You know, to the nearest public facility. But it seems like everyone should have an opportunity. I mean, when I was in art school, I went to the Art Institute of Colorado in Denver. Rest in hell. Those guys sucked, but you had so many people from rural towns where it's like, there's nothing for me. My parents are telling me to leave. There's no opportunity. I know it already. I've seen Star Wars. I know I want to tell stories, but I can't do them here. So I want to go to Denver. I want to go to Omaha. I want to go to California or wherever, and be able to fulfill that. And so to be able to do that locally, that gets harder to do. And especially now in this climate where grant funding that may have even been issued already and is supposed to be on the way is being held up legally for months, years, indefinitely, essentially. Have you started to see any chafing as a result of that? Well, so first on I just think you raise a really good point about access to this kind of program in smaller communities. It reminds me of a conversation that I just had a couple of weeks ago with Amy Schweitek. I don't know if you know Amy, but she works for Philanthropy Colorado, and
her sort of wheelhouse is on rural parts of Colorado, and how do we facilitate more funding for programming in different parts of the state. And we were talking, is there one, is there value, and two, how could it be done that we can kind of share the best practices of our model in other communities?
So it's like a kit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit hard. It's not a kind of a like
buy 7
ABC,
cameras.
like here's a sort of how-to guide, send it to teachers in schools around. I mean, I bring filmmakers out from California. We work with filmmakers locally. It's incredibly labor intensive. We're mentoring at every step of the way.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can kind of like put in a box and send it out. We're thinking a lot about that, like how we can share the model. So just to appreciate what you were talking about that. Yeah, funding. So I spend more than 50% of my time, all the time, raising money. I mean, that's what I do mostly.
Sunday
I would do that more than the filmmaking.
You're like,
yeah, I am writing grants. If I'm not writing grants, I'm writing the reports for grants that we did get. If I'm not doing that, I'm thinking, are there, individuals in our community that maybe don't know about us that might be aligned? Can we, I remember taking a class on fundraising many years ago when I was making films in San Francisco, and I think the average number of touches that a new donor or an executive producer in the filmmaking world need is like seven touches. You can't do 7 touches in a day. I mean, it really is it's a
long process.
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So you have to plant seeds, in 2025 that are not going to really bloom until 2027. So,
hey there, John Johnson. Good to meet you again. Hey, I just wanted to follow up with you.
John Johnson is the name of my uncle too, so I need to reach out to John.
Tim Thompson is his brother. Yeah.
But we, the Youth Documentary Academy, don't get directly federal money. We have during COVID some of the relief money that came through the feds,
right?
And just a couple years ago, we got a grant that was federal that was administered through the state for capacity building for nonprofits. So we have in the past, but I think what's happening, you probably know that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is going to be dissolving.
Yes.
Dissolving in September. And
which is about when this will air, maybe a little. So right before this, probably if you're listening, watching this, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone.
I don't know if folks kind of realize the impact of that, but there are, if you're a PBS station or an NPR station in Denver, even Colorado Springs and larger cities, you have a larger staff, you have a development team. They've been out trying to kind of diversify their funding. They have, you hear on KRCC, would you like to donate your car? But would you also like to, in your trust or will, leave, there are strong efforts. If you're a small PBS station, perhaps in the San Luis Valley, or just think any rural part of America, red states, blue states alike, you're not going to be able to survive without funding from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. So then what those folks are going to be doing are turning to big philanthropists or company foundations, Ford Foundation, MacArthur Foundation, to fill the gap. But I think the question there is that sustainable over time? And what happens to all that money that the MacArthur Foundation is going to give to, survive a PBS station for folks like us who are the lower folks on the totem pole who are trying to get funding for media arts? So there's going to be, and already is, as I'm hearing in the space, and a trickle down in terms of scarcity of funds. And so, if you're Donald Trump or you're in his administration right now, you're like, wow, this worked. This really works. Their strategy is certainly working. So I think we're all really nervous, and we hope that just in our own little world of the Youth Documentary Academy that people are going to come and kind of support us when that money's not there. Yeah, and I mean, it's something that nonprofits your size and smaller are going to be struggling a lot with, especially those who have spent even proportionally more time
trying to get that funding. They're on Instagram. Their social is like, hey, be sure to drop us some money in that. Yeah. And that becomes that regressing libertarian, like, just let everyone have it, let everyone fight for their own, not recognition that art, just like highways, is a structural need for our country. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing with, not to digress, but like giving up leadership in green energy and stuff like that. The county commissioners voted unanimously to against a power line that Excel was going to go through East County. And if we're going to have more green energy, we need to move it around. And if we need to move around, we need to build a lot of power. And it's this concession of the future so that we can live in the past and regress in that. And so when you have a forward-looking agency, company like YDA that's like, we're trying to be able to open all this stuff up and go to the future, it's like, well, hopefully 3.5 years goes pretty fast.
Yeah. Well, you're right. And you know, just recently with the big, beautiful bill, the amount of cuts that are going to impact Colorado in terms of Medicaid, you've got, you know, and then this raises really difficult questions, like funders are being faced, and philanthropists and community foundations and corporate foundations are being faced with, you know, do we help folks like on the ground who have some very, very basic needs that are not going to be met because their health insurance is going to be cut? Yeah. Or do we fund documentary film for youth? Like when it's put like that, it's like, well
gosh, I feel a little guilty.
We got to kind of support the necessities of people's daily life, and that's really critical. So you can see how it's increasingly going to be very complicated for arts organizations and all organizations, all nonprofits, as you said.
Yeah, trying to get all that around. The last time we talked, though, there wasn't a Trump in the office, but we were talking about film subsidies, and they had changed the amount. I cannot remember the fine details of it at this point, but it was, we're going to increase the film incentives, the tax abatements for that. But also, Marvel just moved all of their operations out of Georgia, which has been in the past couple decades this epicenter of new American production and subsidization in the arts. And they're going to UK because it's just a little bit cheaper. We saw that with animation. A lot of animation houses in Southern California closed up so they could move to Vancouver or Montreal or wherever, and get those Quebecois tax breaks and that. So here we are. We were behind before in terms of expanding our filmmaking, artistic enterprising. And we've got some good local foundations that are contributing, Bradenberg and all that. Copper's facilitating on that. But it's like we were at a step or 5 or 10 behind, and now the world's getting a little bit more acidic and red oceany. So it's like you look 10 years down the road, it's like, that looks hard.
Yeah. Well, I have one piece of good news.
Good. I love it.
I think hope is sometimes feels a little bit in short supply. So the fact that the Sundance Film Festival is moving to Colorado in 2027 is a huge boon. And the state of Colorado, specifically the film office, the film commissioner, Donald Zuckerman, the deputy film commissioner, Ariel Brackman, I mean, those folks did quite a lift in the last couple of years to make Colorado appealing to Sundance, and they chose it, and that's going to be huge. My concern as a person that cares deeply about Southern Colorado and Colorado Springs and the film work that we're doing here is that, are we going to get sort of left out of the Sundance magic? Yeah. And I don't think that's the case, because the state of Colorado is their friends, like the film office loves YDA and has been a partner with us since almost the very beginning when we started. Yeah. So I've been having some great conversations with them, but I think there's a perception that there's this elite corridor between Boulder and Denver, and that, folks are going to get off the plane at DIA, they're going to do fun stuff in Denver and business stuff in Denver, and then they're going to head to Boulder for their festival. So I think we're very much talking on our board and our staff and our partnerships with other organizations is how can Colorado Springs benefit from the Sundance Film Festival starting in 2027. And so I can't quite say it yet, but I'm very, very excited by a project that would be national in scope that YDA and hopefully new partners in the Springs could take on in proximity to the Sundance Film Festival that I think would be very empowering for a lot of folks.
That's it. That's kind of like you could have a SoCo theater or something like that. Here's what's happening down the street here. Yeah. Because I think I've never been to Sundance. I submitted to Sundance once, and that was a fun rejection email, which I was kind of expecting. But it seems that people know Park City, just a little dot, and then like kind of not the culture and that around Utah. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like if we're going to bring it to Boulder, it shouldn't just be this is an economic engine. This is going to be the cultural gotcha. It's like Sundance is in Boulder, but you want to be able to take advantage of that with all this fabric around there, the nature of Colorado to be able to, you also get this experience too. It's not just ski slopes and Breck and Aspen. It is, I guess Aspen's kind of that same way culturally too. It's like you take your airplane in and then you leave. Yes. We want Sundance to be a broader, bigger exhibition of what Colorado can do.
I think that's right. And I think it's in the DNA of Sundance to always be looking at questions of, like we were talking about before, representation and who gets access to this, and in turn who has story to tell that we don't always see in the mainstream. Like they've always been really energized by those ideas. Yes, there's a corporate and Hollywood influence in Sundance, but they've, on the whole stayed really true to that kind of independent spirit. And we've got that in spades in Colorado Springs. And so it's going to be our job to capture their attention and let them know about this and see what we're doing and see what, ways in which we can put a spotlight, some of that Sundance spotlight on what our youth are doing in this unique model. Yeah. But also leverage the fact that the festival's happening at a certain time. Can we bring people to town to kind of share our model? Have a conference, have a sort of youth festival that's living right there.
So you're nearby, more than just a badge table with some people hanging out. Here's some brochures.
Yeah. And of course, for our students to have access to be able to drive 2 hours with our students to Sundance and have them experience that.
But also be able to tell their stories as well. Yeah. To this national, international audience. Yeah. That's a big stage.
It's big, yeah.
Have you seen some of the prep that they have? Like, I don't know how many theaters Boulder has that would be able to facilitate. I know it's kind of like setting up an Olympics almost.
It is. Yeah. It is. I think, I don't know the details yet, but my guess would be that they are going to be reliant on a partnership with the University of Colorado at Boulder, because there aren't a lot of independent theaters. And unless you want to kind of set up makeshift theaters and hotels, which has never been the case with Sundance. So there are beautiful theaters on campus at CU, and I know that there have been conversations between the programmers and folks at the university. So my guess is that the university is going to play
a big part in that.
An important role. Now, I went to Sundance in 2001. That sort of launched my career. I had a film that went there and did well there, and even back then, although the festival was sort of focused in Park City, there were screenings that were being organized in Salt Lake City. And so it wasn't just one space. So my guess is I wouldn't be surprised if there are some kind of adjunct programming pieces that are going to happen in other places. Yeah, in Denver, hopefully in Colorado Springs. We want to make that case here, but also they've been doing, even in the last, I want to say 2 or 3 years, they've been doing some of their Sundance labs up in Estes Park. So there is potential for the whole state to be kind of beneficiaries of the kind of work that they do. And they, of course, they have the festival, but they have the Sundance Institute. They have a lot of programming that runs year round, some of which will be in Colorado. And I think the potential for that is really, really exciting.
That seems like an opportunity to do like a Sundance X Colorado Springs or something along that same pipeline there where it's like everyone's excited about film. This is where we can, I mean, obviously Rocky Mountain Women Film, they have their whole weekend. It's amazing.
It's amazing
when that pops up. But
longest running women's film festival in North America.
I thought it was the Western Hemisphere.
I mean you say tomato, I say tomato. But
really successful is what we're saying.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I continue to be really excited about living and being in Colorado Springs more full time, and kind of seeing opportunities like that one come to fruition.
So, and Rocky Mountain Women's Film does have a similar. There's a similar issue with the content of being very nationally oriented. Like this is a thing that's also running right now on Peacock, or this is Sundance award-winning film or something like that. But shifting that focus, it seems like I'm banging it too. Shifting that focus so that you can bring more local filmmakers into that. What have you thought in the past few years, as you're now buying a house here, about the growing films, even because it's been 2 years now since we talked about film COS and subsidies, and obviously that hasn't really changed that much. But you do have people like our mutual friend Ralph Giordano, who is he has Short Circuit coming up here in a minute, but inspiring, providing a theater they have an actual dedicated space to go to Ivy Wild 2, dedicated resources like, hey, we are shooting stuff here. Let's make it happen. Like there could be a Colorado Springs thriller or something like that.
1,000%. I'm glad you highlighted Rocky Mountain Women's Film, partly because it's not just a new kid on the block, that they've been around
for a long time.
I mean, I just, again, thinking like, okay, fleeing Colorado in the 90s, Colorado Springs, so glad to get out of this, this backwards, small-minded town, and yet all this amazing work going on during that time, even in film, the very thing that I've been interested in all my life. So we, Youth Documentary Academy, have had a very close partnership with Rocky Mountain Women's Film since we started. It was a class, I was teaching a class over at Bemis School of Art on film, and Linda Broker and Kathy Stoltz and some of the leadership of Rocky Mountain Women's Film took that film, and then we would go out for coffee afterwards and just talk for hours about film in Colorado Springs. And I think one of the reasons why that partnership is so special is that, as you said, Rocky Mountain Women's Film is looking nationally and internationally to bring films here. YDA is looking locally at young filmmakers who are here, who are locally, who are making films in our own backyards.
Right.
And so
and trying to bring them out.
Yeah. So it was actually a very complimentary, and has been a very complimentary partnership over the years. And watching Ralph Giordano, who also teaches film at UCCS, the University of Colorado, run these film festivals and continue to keep the indie spirit alive, which is the name of one of their film festivals.
Very enthusiastic fellow. Oh my gosh. Yeah. If you need to talk about film locally or buy a used car, Ralph Giordano has got you covered.
He is a catalytic individual, and also he's such a good human being, and he's been really a great partner because he sees these films that are coming out of Colorado Springs from the diversity of our families who live here, and he's putting a big spotlight on them at his festivals, especially the Shorts Festival that's coming up very soon. In just a few weeks in September. And I think 9 or 10 YDA films have been selected to screen. So our kids are going to get to go with their families and help provide new audience for Ralph, and in turn, folks in the film community are going to get to see what the next generation are doing. There's a lot to be excited about in Colorado Springs. So
How have the kids reported back about being exposed to being on stage and stuff like? Because now that I've been to a number of local film festivals and I've seen YD. Last year we went to the premiere and we were there all day. You don't realize, like, they're short films, but there's a number. There's a dozen of them. Yes,
we'll keep you. We'll buckle you in, and you won't be leaving.
The doors are locked. No, they keep the door open. Yeah, it's too costly, but to sit and at the Gaylord Center and bring all of them and bring all of the filmmakers out, and some of them are like, whatever, it's fine, but have you heard from them and what their experience is like getting through that whole process, premiering, showing it to the world? Like it's as filmmakers, you more a filmmaker than me. I'm just a YouTuber. Who cares what I do? But exposing that, getting that external validation.
It's
like what
transformative, Nick. It is. I remember when I made my first film, and especially when you're in post-production, which is the stage right before the film is released, you're working in a cave for months, if not years, with a very small number of people.
Yeah. Alone.
Or alone in the case of many films, because you don't have the budget to hire an editor. So you're as director, you're editing your own film. I was very lucky. My first film got funding from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Would not be funded now today. Actually, 4 of the 5 films that I've made in my career in California were funded by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting through.
So it's very personal.
The independent television service.
It's
so
not
it feels
just an ideological thing.
Very, very, very personal.
Yeah.
But to your question, it is my favorite time of the year. It's my favorite event because you see these young people who they're learning how to make a film. Yeah. They're in many cases trotting out this difficult part of their lives or this story that has been maybe previously like taboo or shameful. And then they're stepping in front of an audience of 500 people and 20 community groups and media who are all set up at Cornerstone at Colorado College on this huge, amazing stage.
And the commissioner's there.
We roll out the red carpet. Literally, we have a red carpet and the stand and repeat and all of the, the paparazzi. And we do that. We actually do that intentionally as a way to celebrate this incredible process. And what's amazing to me always is that the kids who were previously very introverted and very maybe cautious, especially related to the story in their film, are like grabbing the microphone and wanting to share that experience. And it's the film that is able to, kind of make that a public face for them. And then suddenly people are coming up to them in the lobby and saying, that's my story too. Can I talk to you about that? So it's amazing and it is energizing. And we know that a number of the youth in our program are not going to go on to be documentary filmmakers. And also, it's a very difficult thing to do for anyone. But what they're doing in terms of the communication skills, the storytelling skills, the becoming an ambassador for something that you care about, the civic engagement.
Right.
I mean, there's every good reason for young people to feel disaffected in our society right now, given gridlock in government, given the sort of toxicity in our discourse, the kind of loudest, meanest voice wins.
Yeah.
These young people are coming of age and learning the power of listening and a skill that actually like, oh, I do have something to say in this world. And people are responding to it. They're going to go out and it gives me great hope that they're going to be the next generation of people who are leading because they're, the kind of skills that they're learning in terms of how to lead are beautiful. And I think it's of course they're skills that make for a good film, but I think the leaders of our country could learn much from these young people and the craft that they develop. So
if they watch movies or experience art,
that's true too, and that's the power of art, right?
So this is YDA's 12th.
Yeah, we'll be going into our 13th year.
Their 13th year now. What ideas have you seen? Like, that's a span of time now. What ideas have you seen come and go over that time? Yeah. Either thematically or logistically, as you've been watching students come in and maybe they've been exposed to previous iterations or previous short films and that.
I mean, I think the biggest trend is access. And I think that was, when I started making films in the late 90s, that was the new trend. I mean, prior to that, especially in, before the 1970s, if you wanted to make a film, you basically had to be working for a news corporation because it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to have access to gear. And at the time, edit systems and
if the gear even exists here.
Yeah. So I think, the digital revolution and the kind of democratizing of filmmaking has been a game changer in our lifetimes. And so young people are beneficiaries of that. And they come to YDA already knowing how to make and edit videos on their phones. So the technical pieces, the technical competencies are really quick. When you add to that these young people are coming with emotional skin in the game because they're telling something that's very, delicate or precious or something, they're even more motivated to want to learn the filmmaking skills. So I think over, the decade of our work, we've seen that, that increasing shift and opening doors of access to filmmaking. So that's a beautiful thing.
There was a film last year, and I can't remember, you know what it is, but it was the short film last year about homelessness.
Yeah.
And it was a third person.
Yeah.
You talked about access, and most of these are first person documentaries, but that was I'm going to step back, let me study this as if it were a PBS documentary or something like that. Let's talk to someone locally, West Side Cares?
Homeward, PIkes Peak.
Homeward, PIkes Peak, sorry. And the work that goes into helping people who are unhoused and providing aid and keeping track of that. The point in time survey went up substantially this past year because they were working with, Amy Cox is in there now. She's a saint in helping people get access to resources and that. But they're also working with the Colorado Springs Homeless Union to find these people and make sure they're counted so that they are accounted for while they're doing that. And that seems kind of just like hand in hand. You can think more about the issues. Like if it's very easy in this town to hear complaints about, the unhoused, I don't want to go downtown. The mayor had his 6-part, tour, and that would come up. It's just, we have to do something about the unhoused, and the humanity kind of slides in there. But it seems like YDA is a great place to understand that at a younger time. Instead of like having to become a grizzled ancient and then get chipped out of those opinions, which is much harder.
100%. I'm sort of glad you called that film out because it is an anomaly. As you said, most of our films are these kind of first-person narratives, and this young man, Christian, was really driven to want to tell a story about homelessness and unhoused people. And it comes down to that question then of access. How are you going to do that? What are your access points? And so we connected with Homeward, PIkes Peak because some of our staff has some connections to their staff. And it was amazing to watch this 17-year-old navigate a group of leaders in the room who are all in their 40s and 50s and get access to their outreach team, who, by the way, are doing extraordinary work. Those people that go out day after day and have built relationships that are human to human with people who are unhoused and providing resources and building enough trust that those folks on the ground are willing to potentially accept a resource or look at a possible change in their lives. And they just let our student in. The Christian was just there, and so it would not have happened without the nonprofit sector here, and it would not happen without Homeward, PIkes Peak, that he was able to actually connect with unhoused people and the people on the ground that are working with them. So that was a beautiful project to watch.
Yeah, there's so many of those, and it seems that even with the earlier film about PTSD, with fewer military going out and on campaigns, doing tours and stuff like that, it seems like that conversation around the military changes, and veterans and that, but also, especially as our culture is shifting around LGBT rights and stuff like that, Pride becomes a big deal now. Once a year, is interesting to see. Heck, just even walking in, there's that church where it's got Black Lives Matter, and it's got the
First Congregational Church
in
Colorado Springs.
Which I don't know if that's Lee Lemkuhl's church, but when in the city council race, Dave Donaldson called him out and said, you go to a church that's got a Black Lives Matter LGBTQ flag on there, those guys are left-wing hostiles. So
you walk into that church and you're going to see like the average age of folks are, you're going to see a lot of silver hair and still predominantly a white audience. So I guess
that's Colorado Springs.
Donaldson can call it whatever he wants. That is one of the most thoughtful congregations of folks that I have seen. And I grew up being an agnostic. I never have been drawn to a particular religion. But when I walk in there, when I have gone in there, either to a service or to an event or a lecture series that they often co-sponsor, it feels to me like one of the most enlightened spaces. And you mentioned the LGBTQ plus community and how Pride has grown and overcome obstacles in this community. The Gay Men's Chorus of Colorado Springs basically resides at that church, and many of the concerts that they do, the Christmas concert, the holiday concert, the other, are in partnership with that church. So those flags and signs that you see outside that they are committed to having visible also reach deeply inside into the kind of hearts and minds of that congregation. It's lovely.
Yeah.
This coming from a guy who really couldn't tell you anything about the Bible. So,
but it has happened in your lifetime.
Yeah.
It's happened, you're a kid who was shown, like, if you want acceptance, there's the door, to here's the door, come in.
Yeah.
So I want to circle back to that question I asked you earlier. James Dobson died the other day. What did you feel? And knowing the lieutenants are like right there filling in exactly, and he's probably been out of the situation, but it's just reading the comments.
Yeah.
There's not been a lot of love around that.
There's not been a lot of love. There have been a lot of people who have on social media from this region talked about how damaging the messaging of James Dobson and Focus on the Family had been to them, and many examples of that. And as a queer person myself, obviously we talked about this earlier in the conversation.
Yeah.
It felt very personal to me that there was, I looked at their budget, and it's something like, close to $100 million a year over the decades since it's located here in Colorado Springs. And I'm just thinking, all of those resources and all of that staff geared toward, dismissing members of our community who are part of our human family. Like, to me, it's just like, really? Like that? And I do remember taking a tour of Focus on the Family when I was visiting back in the late 90s. I brought two friends who were filmmakers from San Francisco, and we kind of
check this place out.
Yeah, I had my friend Michelle, my friend Michael. Michelle and I kind of pretended to be married. We were going to just, we were being a little stealth, but in a kind of in a playful way, but also like, this is like anti-gay ground zero of the U.S., so we wanted to be careful.
Yeah.
But I just remember like going through this section where they said, we get 3,000 queries a day, and we call this pain mail, and all of our staff are counseling folks. And at that time, the predominance of the mail was, I think my kid might be homosexual, or I caught my son with another young man. And again, just looking at the resources, speaking of film and video, their media stages and their video production facilities and the numbers of countries that they were sort of beaming out shows about pain mail and, the sort of deviancy in our society, and that deviancy can be healed.
Yeah.
The pathologizing of gay people writ large was just like, I remember being sick to my stomach. I remember going home and throwing up. It was like that, it's sort of fun going in and then realizing. So I have, it's a reminder that that has been a strong part of Colorado Springs as well, and really in some ways informed the direction of my life, But it's nice to come back and know that organizations like Focus on the Family, they're some of them are still here, but they don't have nearly the same kind of presence. Yeah. And when you have people moving to Colorado Springs from Denver, from Austin, from California, those people are coming to this community and they're bringing different expectations around, fairness, expectations around art, what they want to see,
Equality.
So I think migration in that sense in Colorado Springs has been a really, really good thing, and has sort of moderated the extremes that used to be here and were really unavoidable.
But they're still here. I've noticed that in my job searches, like a lot of the creative positions are with churches. Mm-hmm. David C. Cook and Focus on the Family,
the
and
New Life Church,
Cherith Terrace up in Woodland Park, Andrew Womack's thing. Like, hey, if you want to get into video production, come join a church. Like, okay.
I mean, what I would be curious as a documentary filmmaker, though, is how things have moderated within those churches. It's easy for people who are not Christians or who are not, people of faith that those organizations espouse to sort of, kind of lump them into a monolith. And yet we've had students in the Youth Documentary Academy who are from the New Life Church, and their families are in the New Life Church, and they're amazing people, and we've gotten to know them human to human. So I think we have, we had a sort of an extremism that has hit Colorado Springs over the decades. But I think, there's an opportunity to, what am I trying to say here, Nick? There needs to be not just a sort of angry backlash to the backlash. You could say the MAGA movement is a backlash to Obama or something.
Yeah.
But taking time to really get to know people individually and seeing, like, where is our common ground? We are human beings. We're not of different species because we have different political or social or cultural views.
Yeah.
We want good things for our families, for our kids, for our partners. Hopefully we want to expand democratic rights in our world. So where can we find common ground? And I will say that, in YDA, we'll have a kid from New Life Church sitting next to a kid whose parents are immigrants from Mexico, sitting next to a kid whose parents are retired military from the Air Force Academy, sitting next to a queer kid, sitting next to, mean, that to me is real pluralism. That's what our kind of democracy is predicated on, is diversity and biodiversity, and ecology is the thing that makes, is strength. And so, so I think there's an opportunity, and I think it goes both ways on the left and the right, to kind of bring down those walls and
rhetoric.
And see each other as human beings. And that's honestly why I love filmmaking. That's why I love documentary film, is that it increases a human's capacity to maybe shut up for a moment and listen, and maybe increase their capacity for empathy and realize, oh, actually, I have more in common with this person than all this sort of hostile stuff. And I don't want to sound Pollyanna, because there are real barriers, and there are real structural things in place, and there's policies that are really damaging. But I think when it comes down to it, that sort of empathy piece is critical.
Yeah, because it's not
society.
enough for progressive, tolerant people to want to be tolerant or express the need to be tolerant, but it's also governance and that policy making, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So one side may be hacking out, knees and stuff like that in pursuit of their ideology, but it's like, we can't just hack their knees out. We have to build them up, and then we as a society need to grow together.
Yeah.
That's harder. That's harder than just hacking out. And I've hacked out some knees. It's fun sometimes. You just want to burn down a car.
Well,
we're
in a moment in history, and we're in a society where getting really angry and demeaning others. I mean, we have a president who models that like daily. And then add to that kind of social media, it's really easy to just, be really angry and loud and be outraged on all sides. But one thing I do love about churches, we're talking about the First Congregational Church and probably many, many more, is that it's really kind of human to human. And that's what I love about Citizens Project. And that's what I love about community groups that form to better their school environments, or Hillside, or Food to Power, like all these, Colorado Springs has more nonprofits, I think, than most cities of our size. And all those groups are really trying to coalesce community, person to person, around whatever issue it is, whether it's unhoused or better food or climate, or we all want to live in a better world, right? So I don't know. It starts with me. For me, I think it starts with that sort of human to human. So can we create more environments? For me, that's film. That's people sitting together, collectively watching and talking about stuff. But there are many mechanisms by which people could kind of bring down the noise and the rhetoric and connect a little bit more as people.
And do you think part of that is related to the fact that the city hasn't done enough investment of its own? Like as a conservative town where it's like, no, the city doesn't pay for anything. I mean, just recently, I guess the past few months, but they awarded a contract to a company to come and figure out City Odd, which has been a huge monument to this is supposed to be an artistic asset, venue, piece of our city, and in the past century it has been.
Yeah.
But it's been neglected for so long that it is a liability.
Yeah.
And so good luck turning that into a for-profit.
Yeah.
Whereas if we as a public got together and said, this is a big deal, YDA is a big deal, this is a big deal, we wouldn't need all these nonprofits who are now having to now also fight for grant funding and whatever loose changes around.
You make a very good point. I don't see that changing
No.
anytime soon.
Right.
I think the one of the outcomes of living in a community, for instance, that doesn't have an arts tax or whatever, is that it forces people to be really creative about how. I mean, look what you're doing here.
I know. This is crowdfunded, and I'm very thankful for those who are able to, but otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. Yeah.
So I don't disagree with you. I think, societies where governments support the arts, if I had lived in France or even Canada with the CBC, I would not feel so insecure about my livelihood as a
Australia
filmmaker.
even.
So I think there's room for good government to support things like arts and social services, but I will say, just on the arts piece, is that it forces people to, get out of their offices and their rooms and connect with people and figure out how they're going to do it anyway. And history shows that artists won't be silenced. I mean, there's maybe I had, when I started my job as a filmmaker in my late 20s, I was working 6 hours a day at Bank of America. I was clocking in, and then my boss knew that in the afternoon, if I got my work done, I was working on grant proposals, and I was working on my film treatments for my first film, Scout's Honor. I wanted to give Bank of America credit, but then I thought, maybe they'll know that I used their copy machine to photocopy my grant. But artists are resourceful.
Yes.
They are some of the most resourceful people that I know, and they will figure out ways of getting it out there, and I feel that here in Colorado Springs. In San Francisco, you could argue San Francisco is the Canada of the U.S., or it is the Europe of the U.S. And
Shepard, San Francisco is the Canada of the U.S.
It was easier. It was easier to get funding for films. It was easier to find community, but there's something about the solidarity that artists have here in this community because they don't take it for granted. There's a solidarity that queer people have here in Colorado Springs because they don't take it for granted in the history here. So I'm super happy to be here now, and now that I've kind of gotten over some of my own issues, like I wish my dad were alive to see, like, Dad, you're right. This is an amazing place, and I am glad to be back here.
I want to wrap up with one question, actually switch gears a little bit. I know this is something that maybe your students have brought to you, and you've been thinking about it, and there are ethical concerns about it as well. AI in filmmaking is becoming more and more real at all times, and I know that you will film, but you'll also utilize stock footage or whatever you need to bring the story to life.
Correct.
But gosh, how easy would it be to just I need a desert shot in Sudan, Google, Veo, generate it, let's go. What are your thoughts on that? And again, obviously the ethical concerns, where did this data come from and all that, but is it potentially valid?
Oh, it's not even a hypothetical. So for the first time this year, I subscribed to Veo 3, which is now going some new name, but it's basically Google's video AI program, because I was really curious. Because our students do really rely on found footage, and sometimes that means footage from their own home movie collection, the social media channels of their parents. Yeah. But also sometimes it's like, they have a vision for a particular sequence or scene of visuals, and so we have these stock houses that we subscribe to of things that have been shot and that we then license. So I was curious, like, what would that look like to kind of bypass the stock footage and just have our students put in a prompt, like, I need a shot of a young man smoking on a dusky, suburban street with the silhouette of trees in the background. And that's what you do. You put it in.
Yeah.
And you can even put in very specifics about what does this person look like. Of course, you can even put in a picture.
Yeah.
It's not going to look exactly like it, but
prompt engineering.
So the creative brain is like, wow, this is really intriguing. The ethical questions are deep, and how is that? Where is that material being sourced? I mean, for me, that's the biggest question as an artist whose 4 or 5 films are out in the world.
Yeah. Have they been looking at your, it's like,
have my films been sourced?
Take a little bit of that. Yeah.
So I'm not going to pretend to have the answer, but I'm trying to stay, and my staff, we're all kind of trying to stay abreast of the latest technology, but also having those conversations very regularly about the ethics of it. So I'll get back to you in season 3 of the podcast. Well, let's put a pin in this conversation.
It seems it's as you say, it's like, let me check this out, and it's interesting. But again, who knows? Because there's a huge backlash, especially among artists. It's like, I want to see that no AI anything was used in the production of this whatever. Yeah. And I get it, but also, is this the printing press, eliminating monks, something like that. And if you watch AI footage on its own, it's miserable. It's there, it's bad, it's probably being used for some profiteer somewhere, but yeah.
But that's going to change. Those weird things that you see in AI video right now, that's going to get a lot better very, very quickly, because the genie's out of the bottle, the cat's out of the bag, whatever metaphor you want.
Something's out of the other thing.
Something's out of the other thing, yeah. So I think this is a really important conversation to revisit, yeah.
If the AI bubble doesn't pop between here and then, because that's actually a growing concern.
Yeah, although San Francisco is basically rebounding from COVID because of AI. All these young people that are in tech, that are engineers, don't want to live in Palo Alto and Silicon Valley anymore, and so they're moving back to the city and, managing to reshape what has been a dismal, dark period for downtown San Francisco. So, yeah, it's for San Francisco. It's the boom bust, the gold dust. Starting with the gold rush, first.com. It's like, but for now, that cycle is full on, and I don't see it ending soon. That bubble, but we'll see.
Tom Shepard, what do we have to look forward to with this now 13th season of YDA coming out here soon? I know it's you guys in post, right?
We're just in post right now. I can't tell you, it's so exciting. This class was on fire this summer. These students, I don't think I've seen a class kind of show up for themselves and for each other in the films. We're going to be premiering those on Sunday, November 9th.
Okay. That's still plenty of
2
time.
2 blocks from here. Yeah. At Colorado College at Cornerstone. So, come to youthdocumentary.org in the coming weeks, and we'll post some information about our premiere. But it's a beautiful event that happens, where it's very, very community oriented, and a chance for our young people to kind of show what they've been doing and what they're passionate about. So,
and despite the rumors, they don't lock you in for the all 12.
You can come and go.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're free to leave at any time.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you for coming
Thank you, Nick.
to this little show where we talk about Colorado Springs and all that.
Really appreciate you and the work you're doing and the voices that you're bringing out. So thank you.
Yeah.
Wasn't that a great interview? Did you go and get your tickets for the YDA premiere? Again, it's next week, this upcoming Sunday, and you should go. It's down at the Gaylord Center, incredible venue. They have them all in one big theater. So, and then, yeah, it's great. So come check it out. We're gonna roll the credits. I hope you guys have a great week. We'll be back next week with another beautiful episode of Binlow. Until then, love your family, love your friends, love your city, and of course, free Palestine. Let's get to the credits. Come on.
Badly Needed and Long Overdue is part of the Studio 809 Community Podcast Network. These interviews are recorded at Studio 809 in the Next Us, a professional cooperative environment for small businesses in downtown Colorado Springs. Be sure to check out all the other fine podcasts at studio809podcasts.com, where you can find your new favorite local podcast. This show is produced by myself and Dave Gardner, with video directed by Dave Gardner. Show music is by Injection Site Reaction. Thank you, guys. I'd like to give a thank you to Catherine Chukas and Ken Schauer, and a special thank you to Kelly Karnetsky for helping fund this second season of Binlow on Indiegogo.